We will begin by creating a configuration service with the necessary dependencies. Spring Cloud Config Server provides centralized external configuration for microservices. Instead of each service keeping its own config files, all configuration is stored in a single place and accessed through HTTP, making changes easier and ensuring consistency across environments. Technically, a config server is just a normal Spring Boot application with the @enable config server annotation enabled. Once this annotation is added, Spring Boot automatically exposes endpoints that allow other services to fetch their configuration. By default, it runs on port 8080, but in Spring Cloud it is conventionally configured to run on port 8888, so it is easily recognized as a config server. When a service starts, it requests its configuration from the config server based on its name and profile, and the server returns the merged configuration as JSON. In essence, config server acts as a central configuration hub for a Spring Cloud microservices system. Spring Cloud config server uses Git as its default backend, which makes managing configuration changes, environments, and auditing very easy. You set the repository location with spring.cloud.config.server.git.uri. For quick setup, you can use a local repository with file, which the server reads directly without cloning. In production, to scale and ensure high availability, all server instances should point to the same repository, ideally using SSH or HTTPS, so each instance can clone and cache a local copy. The delabeled parameter in the HTTP API maps to a Git branch, tag, or commit ID. If the branch or tag contains a // it must be replaced with a special placeholder in the URL to avoid conflicts. Similarly, special characters in application or the URL should be escaped when using command line tools. If the Git server uses a self-signed SSL certificate, you can disable validation with git.skip_SSL validation, true. This makes it easy to work in internal or test environments. Overall, the Git backend gives config server versioned, auditable, and environment-aware configuration, supporting both local testing and production-ready setups. Spring Cloud Config Server, VCS backends like Git or SVN clone files to the local file system, usually in a temporary directory, /tmp/config-repo-id. Since temp directories can be cleared automatically, you should set spring.cloud.config.server.git.baster or svn.baster to a stable location. For multiple labels, if fetching one fails, the server returns an error by default. To continue with other labels despite failures, set spring.cloud.config.server.git.continue on multiple label failure equals true, or SVN, ensuring more resilient configuration retrieval. The native file system backend loads config from local files. Activate with spring.profiles.active equals native and set search locations. Use application, profile, label for organization. By default, labels subfolders are added, which can be disabled. Fast for testing, but production requires a reliable shared file system. Spring Cloud Config Server includes a health indicator that checks whether the configured environment repository is working. By default, it tests an application named app with the default profile and label. You can configure it to check additional applications, custom profiles, or labels under spring.cloud.config.server.health.repositories. The health indicator can be disabled with spring.cloud.config.server.health.enabled equals false, and you can set a custom down status via spring.cloud.config.server.health.downHealth status. If spring.cloud.config.server.acceptEmpty is false and no repository data is returned, the health status will be down. Next, we will create a configuration file corresponding to the configuration we just created, and then check if the config service successfully retrieves the configuration file. Spring Cloud Config Client allows a Spring Boot application to fetch configuration from a config server. With Spring Boot 2.4 and later, this is done using spring.config.import, for example spring.config.import equals optional, config server, which connects to http://localhost 8888 by default. You can point to a different server by adding the URL, like spring.config.import equals optional, config server, http://myhost 8888. Configuration is loaded in two steps. First, the default profile is loaded to determine which profiles are active, then additional configuration for those active profiles is fetched. Multiple requests to the server are normal in this process. With this approach, no bootstrap file is needed, making it simple and flexible to manage external configuration.